paragraph, or the fourth paragraph on page 13 of the Alcoholics Anonymous book. And I'm sorry, I'm just keeping admitting people here. So I'm going to read it. Bill's story. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as He would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request bore on my usefulness to others. Then only might I expect to receive, but that would be in great measure. That's the reading, Paul.
That's it.
That's it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks everyone who does service on this site, and everyone who enters and participates. Well, I don't. Well, it's just the wording, but I wouldn't say there's a new God consciousness. I would say that's always available at all times. We just become conscious of that by being less conscious of self, so to speak. Yes, and that's really many of us. We could track our problems back to an excessive consciousness of self. Yeah, self-consciousness. And this is just this program to me is a way of shifting attention from self-consciousness to, let's use their terminology, God consciousness. That's perhaps there's a better way. He says it in a lot of different ways, but trusting the infinite instead of finite self is another example of it. And basically, it's the way. There's a losing interest in one aspect, and in that losing interest, you gain interest in the other. Yeah, it's almost as if you don't have to do the second, you just do the first. You lose interest in self, and then things that are established and seem to be unsuspected become an obvious or a conscious inner resource. Yes. So now you get introduced to intuitive thought, the pause, PAUSE, a sense of feeling that this ain't gonna work, and a lot of other things, where before we were pretty much under the sway of K-Paul, listening to that all day. And most of us arrive at this state by the desolation and the pitiful incomprehension the reliance on self has brought about. Yeah. I mean, very few people, skip in here with virtue. It's basically we're screwed completely. And finally, there's an admittance of that instead of a denial of that. And then the facts that were always facts in your life, at some point, you crossed the line and you lost the inability or the ability to control or stop your drinking and using. Yeah. And that became facts, and that were not managerial quality has been a fact. But there was a denial of those facts, and finally, the way of life and the admittance of the first step align us with those facts, and now things work better. Yeah. And then for those things that continue to work better, there's a shift of interest, as it says on, I think, page 62 or somewhere. We start losing interest in self. There you go. Now, I don't think there's any need for stopping losing interest in self. I would say the possibility of being interested in self is presented when self arises, let's say every moment. But now many of us are in the habit of being not interested in self, really. And so, of course, we hear it, but we're not listening to its broadcasts. Yeah. instead of where we used to listen to its broadcast at the expense of any other broadcast. We're now not listening to it and picking up other messages, yes? And maybe refinding the ability to enjoy peace of mind, feeling that energy come through, sensing that presence, learning we could face life successfully, all of these descriptions of what happens when this way develops, yeah? The shifting the attention and interest and reliance from self, which has failed us, to the infinite. Whatever you want to call it, it doesn't need to be called. It's already here. You don't have to call it anything. It's available at all times. If you stop calling yourself Paul, you'll be hearing his message probably. Pretty easy. It's like a forever bass note with all the jacking up and down that the head likes to follow. There's an underlying note that just keeps playing. Yeah. Yeah. So yes. So it was nice to test your thinking, which is where the problem resides. Yeah. To the new God consciousness, which is the solution. So instead of testing the problem with the problem, you now test it with the solution and you get different results. Just like when we do inventory processes, one of the coolest things about an inventory process, it doesn't produce your answer. If you do a 4-column inventory, you get a different answer based on that topic or that person or that event. It's just that simple. Yeah. You get weaned off of your answers, which is obviously a big aspect of the problem, and you start taking on new answers. Yeah. To the same old dilemma. Something starts to work. Yeah. So, uh, you know, yeah. That the habit of being sober, we were talking about it the other day about the maintaining of a spiritual condition. I really don't believe we need what needs to be maintained is a mental condition, which is sober. Yeah. And that's produced by a spiritual reliance. I don't believe spirit has a condition that has to be worked out. Yeah. I just don't. I don't feel being awake, like just seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching, never demonstrates any thought or effort. The seeing, hearing, feeling, tasting, touching. It may go bad when your eyes go bad and your ears go bad, but what's hearing isn't the eye or the ear. It's consciousness, let's say. And I don't see that expressing any effort or thought to be itself. So I feel spirit is just completely what it is. It doesn't come in and out or be affected by other conditions. I just think an overriding obsession with a mental condition makes it an unsuspecting inner resource. But the inner resource in itself is not unsuspecting. It's right there at all times. Yeah. And if we just get pulled out of the head of self, yeah, we'll be able to smell the roses. Yeah. So how do you get pulled out of the ass of self? Service is one of the best ways. Yeah. So if you're a newcomer and you're getting close to 6 months, sign up for a hospital and institution meeting. Make a commitment, and you'll see no matter how you're feeling or how you're thinking about how you're feeling, if you go to that meeting, it's going to be worn out in about 10 minutes, and you'll be feeling available and present and probably feel quite grateful when you leave that meeting. It's like a miracle working. Yeah. I saw that as the most in the first few years. Obviously, sometimes it was a rough, row, and I was completely up the ass of self, but I kept the commitment and I went to that. And the most it could stand would be 10 or 12 minutes. And then the whole thing broke down and I was just relieved of the bondage of self. So if you want to get familiar with what it's like to be out of self, service is a tried and true way to keep getting introduced to that availability and presence. One day you're going to call it you, really, but let's say you're going to call it the higher power now. But you'll get introduced to that availability and presence, and you'll start taking on some of its qualities because they're actually your qualities, really. Yeah. You've taken on mental qualities and emotional qualities and physical qualities. Yeah. But these other qualities are inherent and they'll come up to the surface once the surface clears up through a way of life, by making amends and clearing up the past. Then a lot of shit that's like hovering, waiting to land can land. Yeah. I don't think a lot of stuff that seems to influence us are going to come up readily to the surface if you have a chaotic life. I think sobriety, one aspect of long-term sobriety I do believe in is that staying sober for a while allows the shit that's running you from the shadows to come up. And you can see it, and you can, not in a turmoil in a fucking chaotic war zone, but you see it when there's been a peace, and then you bring that shit to 6 and 7, and then 6 and 7, the energy of that reclaims the power in all that that's been put to these other uses, and now puts it to a better use. Yeah. You are an incredible source of meaning and just unbelievable. And it's just been put into the wrong hands for many of us. Yeah. The old employer was crazy. Yeah. It got like Hal in 2001. It took over the mission. You know what I mean? It's just, this is, so yeah. So yes, test your thinking with this new God consciousness. Yeah. How can you test your thinking? Not after thought, but before thought. Yeah. Sit there in a pause and then watch the thoughts come up. And you'll see how crazy they are. A lot of the narratives that I used to, were really, they were taped in 1978 or something. And then it's like they only have a finite numbers of tapes that they just keep replaying in each new day, and after a while you catch it. You're going, wait a minute, this is not even close to what's actually happening. The narrative. It's like it would be so difficult to put it together. It just seems like it just sticks out like a sore thumb. This is what I used to do with newcomers. Before they did the inventory, I would say, just do this basic inventory of write down like when you woke up, write down like you took a shower, you had a coffee, you got in your car and you drive. And now compare that to the narrative that was going on when you were in the shower, when you were making the coffee, when you were driving to wherever you had to go, just to see how fucking off the head is. Yeah. Because there is something that's happening, and then there's this thing that's happening talking about what's really happening. And it's way off. Yeah. So if you want to be convinced of anything, be convinced that self is what has defeated us. That's the thing. That's what it says in our book. It says being convinced self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Yeah, be convinced of that. It doesn't take much. You just need a new understanding, a way of life, and you have the glasses are here in AA, like in an open library. You can borrow the glasses at any time and look at what's going on through the lens of recovery and come up with a sober assessment. What did you see? Yeah. Yeah. And is that which you're seeing the seeing? No. It's the seeing. Yeah. You're the subject. Not that object that's constantly being talked about. You're the subject of this event. Yeah. You're the living of it. Yeah. So I feel once you get a flavor of another way, you're probably going to, that gravity is going to pull you in that direction. And I think it's inexorable. I think nothing can stop it, really. Even if you think you go out, you can come back. Yeah. Yes. You don't lose 20 years of wisdom. It's just, it's not available when you're fucking crazy. When you get uncrazy, it's still there. The presence is still there. The grace is still there. Nothing can stop this movement, really. You've just been moving in a direction, and it's nothing's veering it off anymore. Yeah, yeah. It's a pretty wide highway, but you are definitely going north. Let's say. Yeah. So, yeah. Thanks. Thanks, Kaiser.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Um, if you have a question that you'd like to ask Paul, raise your hand in the reactions portion of the Zoom, and I'll see your hand and then unmute. So we got Kurt raise his hand. Unmute yourself, Kurt, and take it away.
Hey, you guys. Hey, Paul. Hey, Kaiser. So I just wonder, I thought it was great. The next paragraph was very descriptive of what it looks like. You know, it says, my friend promised when these things were done, I would enter upon a new relationship with my creator and that I would have the elements of a way of living, which answered all my problems. Belief in a power greater than ourselves, plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain the new order of things were the essential requirements. Yeah, like, I don't know if it's belief anymore. I think it's more of a knowing, you know. But I thought just there's like 3 paragraphs there that really are just great. The one Kaiser read and those 2 afterwards that were really, you know, I just appreciate the meeting. Just wanted to chime in.
Well, the funny thing is, the program itself, if you practice it, will produce the essential requirements of honesty, willingness, and humility. So the system that has some requirements produces the requirements. I mean, that's awesome, I feel. Yeah. Yeah. If that's what's required, yeah, it doesn't say you got to go out, get it somewhere. It will happen actually through this process, through going to H&I or other things and seeing how it is, how people are living under this tyranny of addiction and obsession, the real mental addiction to the idea of self, is unbelievable. It's just, I don't see how it couldn't move you from the location up the ass of self to the present moment. It just really. So.
Well, the point you made was really good about being in the shower and then what your head's telling you, you know, like that.
Well, yeah.
That's a great, you know.
You don't have to do it for weeks. Do it for like an hour, and you'll see exactly how it does it for years is done in an hour. It's not. It's not. It's a basic same theme over and over again. Yeah, maybe it's based on you don't deserve anything good. Maybe it's based on you're inherently unlovable. Maybe it's based on some fucking old idea. And then it basically interprets whatever's happening, no matter how far off it is, with that prism, with that lens. And that lens is cloudy. Yeah. It's basically only seeing its own ideas projecting. It's because most people will say, you know, oh, I don't do anything. They do a whole lot during a day, but their head is like, I have to earn my space. I have to earn my value. Yes. And when they bring all their work and effort, the thing goes, that's not enough. It's just like it's just whimsical, makes a decision. And now you're enslaved to this, trying to get a reward from this fucking policeman in the head. Yes. It's insane. Yeah, it is. It's insane. And you see it in its nakedness. You're just hanging out, and then it says, well, I've got to do something. Okay. But you could wear it loosely instead of, straight jacket. And if I don't, I'm bad or something. Don't you see these as old ideas? And it says the results are going to be nil unless you let go of all your old ideas. In this case, what we do is let go of just one old idea, the idea that we're self, really. And then I believe it loosens all the other knots of the other old ideas. I do. Yeah. Instead of going, picking out some of the knots that you think are essential to unknot while living from this first knot is crazy to me. Yeah. It made sense when I thought I was the first knot, but I don't think I'm the first knot now. so, and I really, a lot of shit that you think is tied up will loosen on its own, tell you the truth. Loss of interest is an incredible balm, BALM. It really is. Haven't you noticed that sometimes your unhealthiness is based on your obsession with health? It's just the way to go. When your head is magnified, it loses a quality of bringing stuff into a clearer view. It may burn shit. It may fucking be destructive. And this is what obsession with self is a magnification, yes, of something that works a lot better with a panoramic setting. It's on a myopic setting, which it's just creating a lot of fucking shit. Mental diseases, emotional conditions. Yes, like inherent, like constant anxiety cooked up by the thoughts. Yeah. This comes about only because of that fucking myopic view. And of course, faith in it. Yeah. That's why it says we've got to tell the truth about trusting the finite self so that trust can move to the infinite. It's killing us. The faith in the thought system and believing that we're going to be screwed a year from now or whatever is producing effects that have no real cause. They're like something described in the Course of Miracles as causeless effects. So we're dreaming these conditions into a reality by obsessing and thinking. And the point is, we can't stop as that. We have to see something else. We have to see it from somewhere else. We call it the spiritual condition in AA. Yeah. We see the mental and the emotional condition from a different view than the mental condition. The mental describing the mental is fucking, it's more of a problem. Yeah. The spirit doesn't describe it, it sees it. Yeah. It sees it. It doesn't need a big description. It sees the failure of it. Yeah. You don't need 8,000 examples unless you do. One can do, really. So, follow back fear. AA tells you it's based on self-reliance. What? Yeah. I thought fear was the big culprit. No, fear is an effect of self-reliance. That's from our view in recovery. Yeah, what? Well, then what does self-reliance mean? Good question. Check it out. I would say faith in the thoughts that are playing in your head right now is self-reliance. We're relying on the thoughts to tell us what's going on with us, with them, with the world, everything, yes? And that reliance has failed us over and over again, yeah? But what happens is when it fails us, we try to get out of it as it. Self tries to get out of self, which fails again, yeah? So we can maybe see the one failure of things are failing us, but we may not see the self trying to get out of self as the actually larger failure. Yeah. Yes. But if you see the exact nature of the wrong and you get a sense it's not you, yeah, it's like a foreign pathogen or a parasitical movement, however it imaged. But what's the point of the imagery is it's not you. Then a possibility becomes available, which is I can be free from it. And then when it happened with me, as soon as the possibility I can be free from it occurred, there was a synopsis of my life from 6 to that point, wherever I was. And I saw that I was trying to be free as self this whole life. I was identified as self and I lived as that. And I tried to get free as that. Yeah. And the bondage of that, I blamed on others and situations and circumstances and everything else. Yeah. That's why when we come into AA, one of the first big waves of recovery is seeing your role in things, finally. And a lot of people I know to this day don't at this moment. And it's jackpotting them completely. They do not see that rehab they have a lot of resentment towards and just split with no place to go, no pot to piss in, no money, yeah, did not invite them there. The circumstances of their own managing, not their own, but the managing of self led them to be put into that fucking facility. But they don't see it that way. And then they leave. And then they call me up. And then a month, 2 weeks later, they're in another facility and they get resentful about that and they leave. And they're running out and they don't have the money for the high-end places which will fit their recovery to fit you. Yeah, they're fucking. He's getting kicked out on the street. He's in his late 50s now. He's not like 24, 25. He can't be wearing the Converse sneakers and with the t-shirt and fuck. He's got a big pot belly. He's lost his hair. Yeah, he's very suspicious out there. Loaded at 1 p.m, 56 years old, roaming around. Pontificating what a great rock and roll star he was and shit. Yes? This is where it happens. Do you think any of us drive ourselves there? No, we're driven there. We don't drive ourselves. That's a story. Self-hate isn't your hate. It's self-hate. Yeah? That's why, AA is awesome because you can have 30 people in the room and a new person comes in and they sing the praises. Oh, I feel so accepted here and everything. Everyone in the room has judged them already, but there's a collectiveness that overrides the singularity. So the creed is love and tolerance. And that's what newcomers feel. They're not feeling you or me. They're feeling us and that loving God that they're suppressing through us. And therefore they think, oh, I feel so accepted here. Not one person is accepting them, sitting in their chair, probably, their head, really. But see, something overrides us as a me in this we. Yeah. And then it's, yeah, so. So, yes, that's how I see it.
Good to see you.
Thanks a lot, Kurt. Whoa, that was quite a tangential share. It was fantastic, Paul. We have another Tobias and Aaron in North Carolina. If you guys want to unmute yourselves and
yes, Tobias.
Yeah, how's it going? Can you hear me? Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Right. Well, I'll get to my question in a minute, but first let me say it's been a blast to get familiar with you and these ideas through YouTube and whatnot. Basically YouTube. We've been getting into some Advaita, non-duality, Rupert Spira and company for a while, and we're also both recovering people. I've been sober 8.5 years, but my question has to do with the fact that I just moved, half a year ago, to North Carolina. And I don't know what to do really. I've got a sponsor, but he's not really he doesn't have this understanding. And I don't know that he needs to, but
Yeah.
so I love your saying that we do inventory to get to a place where we don't need to do inventory. And I'm with you on that. And I'm just kind of in a limbo. And my question is sort of personal. Like, what were your journal entries like? What was your step work like as after you experienced, this awareness that it's not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the inventory aspect, yeah, that shrunk a lot. Yes. Yeah. And the praying shrunk a lot.
But
Yeah.
meanwhile, there's a kind of a, the norm, the classic norm is got a sponsee, got a sponsor. It's a kind of a should.
Well, I have a sponsee, and he's sort of like a sponsor. He's got more time than me, but I'm his sponsee. And I have some. I just spoke to one of my old sponsees this morning from Minnesota, so I stay engaged with that. If someone, I don't. My answer to someone is based on the someone more than me. If I'm working with someone, my answer is based on their condition, not this condition, let's say. So, yeah, sometimes I stay with the basics, and then hopefully you can put out the idea that self has defeated us, and maybe start getting a recognition of it in our lives. And the use of steps 6 and 7 as a way of having your life reclaimed and recycled, yeah, and stuff like that. So I don't have the Paul Hedderman school of AA.
No, I didn't think
know,
you did. And I'm also guessing it's kind of maybe a common problem amongst folks here, as like maybe if anybody else has an idea of like how what it's like to go through traditional step work to kind of advise.
Yes, I would think there's a lot of people here. If you stay a little later after the talk, right, Kaiser? I'm sure a number of people will say something.
Yeah,
Kurt, other
absolutely.
people.
That's what we'll do after the
Yeah.
meeting. Yeah, that's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
Right.
So because obviously our community of recovery, all of us get caught in the Herbert Spencer, contempt prior to investigation, especially if something that we cherish and hold so dear, sometimes we see new ideas as a threat to that. Yeah. And it just happens. So, I was guided in my navigation of all this over the years. Yeah. By, I would say, spirit. So, yeah. So, yeah, you can, if you have a sponsor, you could also have a spiritual advisor, if you want to talk about it like that, who has this essence of an idea of that we are spirit, not mental and physical. Yeah. Yes. So you can have both. You can have the AA 12-step bare bone stuff, and then you can have a spiritual advisor who talks about that unsuspected inner resource and what that reveals. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a lot of times it's not black or white. Yes. It's not leave or stay. It's just you adapt. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that too.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have a board of directors, and so they are, wise, and it's we have great conversations and stuff. And this understanding has definitely recontextualized 6 and 7 in terms of like when I catch myself selfing, I'm like, instead of going, oh, let me write this down and tell someone about it, or I notice it as, selfing.
Yeah,
And
great. Yes.
so, and
It's a
also,
great recycling, seriously. It's unbelievable. Really. It's
yeah,
almost as if
composting.
yes, that power will extract the energy of all that past shit and bring it to life now. This is what you feel. It's in a sense your presence you feel as the presence. Yeah. And if you're completely occupied by the past and future, there's not much of presence being emitted in this present moment. Yeah. There's an occupation. Now you're on a mental layer of yesterday and tomorrow. This is about your presence, and presence is the same presence. Yeah. 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 The funny thing is, you believe your present can be absent. This is the insane ideas, or some of the insane ideas we hold to be true, that I can be out of this moment, which is an impossibility. Yeah. It's an impossibility. So this whole idea that drove many of us and still does, that we got to get into the moment, is based on an insane idea that you could be out of a moment. I just don't see that's possible. So my faith is not about getting into the moment. My faith is I can't be out of a moment. That's where it is. I mean, it's super clean. There's no effort because I can't be out. I can't get out of here. I tried. I shot coke in my neck. I induced involuntary overdoses. I did a lot of shit to get out of here. And if you're here, you can't get out of here. If you're not here, you never knew it was here. But while you're here, you can't get out of here. You may for an hour or something, but it's going to roar back. Usually for me, it was a uniform wave of policemen and paramedics would roar into the life once again, and I'd wake up and I'd be super fucking pissed. I was super pissed I was still alive in a way. Yeah. So as long as you're here, you're here. As long as there's a here, you're here. So, yeah. Why not get clear about the exact nature of the wrong? I swear to God. If there's so much weight in wrong and right, I mean, you might as stop thinking about what's right. Let's see what's wrong, maybe. Yeah, take a look at it. Maybe your whole idea of right and wrong is wrong. You never know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But this whole point of this platform, we're not trying to improve the 12th step or anything. We're just getting to the exact nature of what I feel is the wrong, which is the mental act of being identified as self, which is an addiction. And an extreme addiction where we start out as the drug. The head is addicted to this idea of self, and we live from the idea of self. So everything we're trying to get in or out of, we're trying to get in out of the drug, the mental drug of self. Yes, that's the underlying causes and conditions to alcoholism and addiction, is the addiction to self. And it's not you and I, it's the mental state that has a large say in our lives. So it's addiction, just like my girlfriend would be affected by my addiction. She's not an addict. Yeah. We're affected by this mental addiction, but we're not the addict in this state. Yes. We're not. This is what's the dilemma. We're identified as the addict. So we're constantly trying to get out of something we're not truly in. That's why it never works. So finally, we're taking a different view. Are you in that which you so much want to get out of? If you're not, that's the out. The out is not being in. Yeah, that's the whole movement of this message, really. Is self is an ideation, an addictive ideation. Yeah. That's all it is, but if you live from there, that's basically how you live. And you're going to want to get out of it eventually, yeah? And you're going to try to get out of it as it. And it's going to be very frustrating and confusing, and you'll turn around and most people don't have a clue of what to say to you because they're trying to get out of the same fucking thing. Yeah? It's not on every street corner. I wish it was. But if you have the ears to hear it and then let it take you somewhere. Because to me, the problem, for it to be not existing for you, it has to be seen as not existing as you. Yeah, that's my take. Yes, truly. Or you'll just have some vague, infrequent moments of it not existing for you. But if it's established as not existing as you, now your norm is it's not existing for you. Most, day after day after day. Yeah? That's a solution, worthy of the term solution, literally. So that the problem does not exist for you is truly based on it never existed as you. Never. It just seemed to. We give it all the power it has to defeat us. Yeah. It's a beggar of power. That's why it's playing at us all day. We're the bearer of light, not it. It's a reflection. Yes? It's like a mutated image in a mirror. There we are standing it, and there's some mojo magic tricks. So when you see your reflection, you see this. Yeah? In Zen, they would call getting through all this, you see your original face, which is not a face. Yes? Yes. Or as Douglas Harding said on Having No Head, yeah, there's no one there. These are revelations of the same thing we speak of as the unsuspected inner resource. When it becomes suspected, it will verify itself. With a minimum amount of willingness, it will demonstrate unbelievable shit. Yes? Yeah. It's the unsuspected inner resource, isn't because it's small or infrequent or really far away. It's right obvious. It's like the water and fish. Yes? It's that obvious. We're swimming in it. We're so immersed in it, we don't see it. And then suddenly you hear a message or something happens and you start seeing it. And now that inner resource becomes an outer resource. Yeah. Yes. And it's not unsuspected, nor will it ever be unsuspected again. Never. No way. Once the cat's out of the bag, as Ramana Maharshi, a great master, says, hey, your head is in the tiger's mouth already. You've seen enough. Yeah? Yeah. So, do an inventory, 5-minute, and instead of looking at the resentments as yours, see them as a manifestation of self. And then tell me which one works better. Yeah? Which one produces more lightness? Which produces or reinforces an ownership? The ownership is produced by my resentment. The lightness is resentment. Yeah. It's written right in the book. It's not a radical idea. It's just something that hasn't been looked at clearly, I feel. Page 64, being convinced, self-manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. We will now look at its common manifestations. Next paragraph, resentment. So resentment is a manifestation of self in one's life. It's not yours. Yeah? Stop fucking owning it. Because if you own it, it owns you, basically. If you own it, it owns you. You'll have a 30-year resentment. Just like I have a dog, the dog has me, really. The dog has 4 places to sleep in the living room. I don't have anywhere to sit in the living room. The dog is fucking just running around, fucking farting shit, being loved all day. Other people are never getting, embraced at all. I mean, first thing I do in the morning is play ball with this dog. It just goes. I mean, if you look at it energetically, it's the dynamic energy. And yet we have this self-centered story. I'm the big alpha and omega. No, fucking the dog is the dominant energy of the house. I've accepted that. And I'm okay with it. I'll serve the dog. It's fine. Yeah. So thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tobias, and throwing that in the ring. There aren't any other hands, but I wanted to throw one last little piece here, Paul, if you have the moment. The reason why I picked out this reading is I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. That to me is personally how I learned how to I learned how to pray with petition, and then this is suggesting something differently. I wasn't to say, "Hey, take away this problem." I was to say, "This condition that I'm going under, help me figure out how to deal the situation as a higher power or as a community or as AA would hope that I would." And that no longer leaving this for something preferred or no longer criticizing what's taking place and trying to have that erased. That was the first time that I was actually able to see, whoa, I am here. And then by exposing myself to being here, sober, amongst people that I love and trust and a higher power, that's where I started to see the trick of selfing and the possibility of it no longer continuing. Is very it's so small and nuanced, but for me it had incredible effects. And I don't know. That's why I picked that. I don't know if that stirs up anything for you, Paul, but that was
Well, yeah.
my idea.
You pray, and then hopefully you have the eyes to see that your prayers have been answered. So now you're doing what you were praying you would love to do. Yes? Recovery produces the effects. It delivers the goods. You don't have to keep asking it to be delivered. After it's been delivered, it becomes established. Yes? Yeah?
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Yeah.
So, yeah, this is how we get established in it. It's sort of like, I would imagine, the first time you got on a horse with a new saddle, you'd have to ride it a few times to get your ass position and get it shaped a certain way so that you fit. Yeah. Yeah. So the same thing, we ask these things and then they're received and then they become habits. Yeah. So after a while, if you keep asking for them, it's a disservice to the fact that you're already in that condition you're asking for. Yeah. We had a guy, remember, from England, and we were talking about, thy will is done. Yes. And so please relieve us of the bondage of self. And he would say that prayer every day. And then one day he realized he was in the relief of the bondage of self. And he was missing it because he kept praying to be relieved of the bondage of self. He didn't see that he was in the present tense condition of being relieved of the bondage of self. This is what is a subtle thing to point out. Yeah. So you ask and ask, you may have already received. Just check your account or go somewhere. The money may have already been transferred. Yeah. It's I knew some people. I knew a guy I really liked, but he just kept doing inventories, and I was working with him, so I was in as a sponsor. So I wouldn't have said anything to him as a character, but because I was a sponsor, I said, "Hey, you got to stop writing inventories." You know what I mean? Enjoy the sobriety that's been made available. I said, don't go over every minute decision to see what your motive was. It to me is an obsession with self, obviously. Yeah. So he was like, he just wanted to write more. I said, don't fucking write anymore for a while. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like a flower chanting, I'm going to bloom after it's bloomed. Yes? It's sort of missed the point. Yeah. So that's what I mean somewhat about these things. What we tend to pray for, there's a belief that it's not available. But after a while, that belief gets broken, and now you know it's already available, so that you don't pray for it. Yeah. Yeah. I think prayer is part of a process. I don't think it's the complete process. Yeah. Prayer, receive, live. Yeah. Yeah. Not ask, 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 ask. No, ask, receive, express. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. Does anybody have any other quick questions? I don't see any hands raised. We have Jill. She raised her hand. Yeah, go ahead, Jill. If you want to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to kind of run this through you. Have you just said that I need to lose self to find God? Do I actually lose myself, or do I like switch a radio from self and switch onto another waveband for say God? Do you know what I mean? Because you were talking about the shower, the car stuff, and I can listen to it, but I could say I don't want to listen to this. I'll put the other radio station on. Do I actually lose self at all? Or do I just replace self? Because you said self can't exist on its own. So if I'm not feeding into it, does it kind of like evaporate?
It weakens, yes, because it's you. It's an extension of you. We've given it life and we breathe life into it. Now, let's say the doll's gotten too big. So now we'd like to have some air removed. We can't do that. So the doll can't relieve itself of the air. And so taking ourselves to be the doll, trying to make the doll smaller only makes it bigger. So we don't lose interest. We do the AA program and then there's a loss of interest. Yeah. I don't set out to lose interest. That would be interest. Yeah. I just do what we do. And then you notice that you've lost interest in self. Yeah. And you're looking at what you can contribute to life. These are all observations of what happens. So it says you'll see what you can contribute to life and this and that. You'll see there's a change in how everything is viewed and everything. And you are the whole event. Yeah. You're being worked on. And then you have the ability to observe it and express the effects and hopefully pass it on to others. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. So there's a loss of interest, but it's not the self doing it. That would be interest in self. Yeah. So there's a seeing of it as not you, and then you lose interest in it. Because if you keep hearing a station, especially an insane one, and the thing that keeps you dialed in is it's all about you. If that all about you weakens, you'll see the insanity of the station. Yeah. And you'll just rather listen to other music. Yeah. Yeah. I feel so. This is my feeling. This is where I was brought to. There is no self. There's something called selfing. It's a mental activity that implies we're a thing. Yeah. And that thing is not a thing. The thing is the doer, the feeler, the thinker, the taster, the toucher. It's everything. Yeah. And now this has gone a little too fucking far. And basically, the mental state, it's almost like a dog when it has mange and shit. They put a cone on it. So your little satellite dish is around your head, and all you're picking up is K-Paul or K-Jill. And we're living a complete disassociation from one thing, a body, from everything, from what's actually happening. And we're just walking around with these cones. Now, we don't want to point out other cones because we're afraid our cone, we pointed out. So there's been a lot of farting, but no one wants to point any fingers. So we just adapt to the smelly condition. So this is so the whole talk here is to maybe look at this solid idea of Paul as maybe not as solid as Paul thinks. Yeah. 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 It's almost like it's one of its problems. Paul is a very arthritic, frozen posture, I'm right, you're wrong, or like that. To have a little fluidity be introduced, it's pretty nice. So one of the fluidity effects could be, instead of seeing it's either or, it could be both. Yes. So now you see things inclusively instead of exclusively. And so you just keep observing the effects of this change that's being brought about by our way of life, and hopefully an understanding of the exact nature of the wrong. Yes. And then you grow in that understanding, and you're now established in a condition that allows you to be sober a day at a time for maybe long periods of time, like 34 years. Yeah. Yep.
Is that another way of saying I'm an alcoholic, but I suffer from alcoholism, but I'm not the ism? Do you know? I'm not alcoholism. I'm not the illness. I just suffer from it. I'm not the actual illness walking around. I just suffer from it.
Most definitely, Jill. That's why one of the biggest things they emphasized in the beginning was the disease aspect of it. And when in America, when the medical, they finally called it a disease, that was a big win for people in recovery who wanted to help others recover, because this sense of ownership of all the shit that has happened through us by being driven by the disease. Yes. So the disease doesn't give us an exemption from owning the shit that happened. We get bound to the shit because there's this stubborn idea that we're the doer. No matter what happens to us, we're the doer of it. Yes? But you can see how differently you behave when you're ill, when you have the flu or something, for those 10 days than when you don't have the flu. Yeah? In this case, we've had a flu for a long, long, long period of time, and we're calling the flu's effects ours. Yes? We're taking ourselves to be the flu, so to speak. Yeah? So this is just changing how we see the conception of many things, where they start. Yeah? And I feel what promotes the greatest effect is the closest to the beginning of it. Yeah. If you can see it from a point of starting, it may never start, which is really cool. If you see it afterwards, you're just hoping it may stop, or you learn how to stop it. But the real relief is not starting. Yeah. So now in abstinence, I don't think about alcohol or drugs ever for 30 something years. So I'm in a complete state of not starting. Yeah. So I don't need to have numbers at hand to call the nearest rehab or the police or whatever, because I don't start drinking. Yeah. I don't start using for 34 years. It's been the absence of starting drinking has been a huge boon to this life. Really. So, and I feel it's attributed to the way I see the program. I do. I think there's something to do with it. Yeah. So thanks, Jill. Thank you.
Great question, Joe. Really great. Thanks a lot. I think that kind of sums it up. That I think that uses our time. Did you want to say goodbyes or? Go ahead.
Yes, for sure. I think I'm shrinking down here. What's happening? Yeah, let's Kerry, as always, nice to see you, bro. Mark R, nice to see you, Mark. John S, Florida. Yep. We got Tom up in Washington. Tobias in North Carolina with Erin. Nice to see you, Tobias. Yeah. Kaiser, Minnesota. Roman. We got Joseph. We got Walter with some other person there. Yes. All right. Yeah. Walter, give me, let your friend have my phone number. I want to know he's okay after we leave, after he leaves you. Yeah. All right. Okay. I don't want to hear it from you. I don't know if I trust you. So Mickey, nice to see you, Mickey. Jill, pleasure. Thanks for the conversation. Nanette, as always. Yeah, keep that candle going. Gail, we're ready for that explosion, Gail. Yep. Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Nina, as always. Nina, that was a big step going to Italy, Nina, right? It was great. And you participated fully. Fantastic. Even if you don't think so.
There was just like 25 Ninas for a couple minutes. I didn't know what I was going to do. But then I realized there was no Nina, so it was okay.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. Yeah. Jack G, he's out in the wilderness. That's good, Jack. We're happy to see you. Everyone that I know wishes you the best, and you know. Joseph, Jacob, nice to see you, Jacob. Feeling good, bro?
Yeah, things are good. I want to say, right when you talked about your sponsor in Minnesota, I was driving through Minnesota.
Oh yeah, wow. Well, if you see him on the road, run him over.
All right.
If you see the Buddha on the road, kill him.
Kill him. Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Jacob, you should have said hello while you're driving by. Anyway.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah. Are you going to Hudson Valley?
I am.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Have a nice, safe trip. See you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stefan, on having never left, there he goes. Well, he never goes, which is great. I like that. Michael Stacy, as always. Alex, oh, there she is. Yeah, she's in the Hudson Valley. There she goes. Alex, your hair color, you went back to, yeah?
It's been growing this whole time, Paul.
Yes, wow. It's cool. All right. We got Jeffrey in Seattle. There he is. Oliver, Berlin. Let's see who else is here. I think that's it. So, what a pleasure. Thank you for filling up my day. Pleasure. We'll see each other. Zen Bitch Slap event page has all the talks. Yeah. If you're interested in the recovery, we suggest Under Arrest. It's a book we put out about looking at the program recovery from this view. Yeah, it could be helpful. So, hey, I'll see you guys. Bye-bye.